The Galactic Council's emergency chamber had never been this silent. Grand Counselor Vathak's crystalline scales reflected the crimson emergency lights as she studied the holographic display hovering above the central podium. Darkness spread across the star chart like spilled ink, each blackened system representing another communication breakdown, another failure, another potential catastrophe. 37 systems in the last solar rotation alone. The ancient Murex ambassador whispered, their violet eyes wide with horror. The ambassador's tentacles curled inward, a sign of deep distress among their kind. We haven't seen an information blackout of this scale since the Quantum Wars. Vathak's inner membranes flickered, her species equivalent of a grimace. The Quantum Wars were precisely what she feared everyone would remember. Those conflicts had reshaped the galaxy's power structure, and not in a way anyone had expected. Perhaps a young Skiteri diplomat named Jexri stepped forward, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with nervous energy. It's time we request human intervention. The chamber's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Even the perpetually floating gaseous entities of the cloud confluence condensed slightly. You're new to the council, aren't you? Vathak asked, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. She gestured to the archival terminal on her podium. Computer, display historical file TAs. 1138. The Raxos Incident. A holographic display shifted, showing a star cluster that made several council members avert their eyes. Where dozens of inhabited worlds once orbited their stars, only debris fields remained. Dead space stations drifted like skeletal monuments to a civilization's hubris. 3,000 years ago, the Raxos Combine thought they could force humanity to share their quantum manipulation technology. Vathak's scales rippled with memory. They believed that because humans had withdrawn from galactic affairs, they had grown weak, passive. They were wrong. The display zoomed in on one particularly dense debris field. Ancient scanner data showed the remnants of what had once been the Raxos homeworld. The humans didn't just defeat them, a mechanoid representative added, their voice modulator pitched low. They erased them. Not through brute force or superior numbers, but through technologies we still don't understand. The entire Raxos species, their AI networks, even their quantum backup archives, all gone in a single solar rotation. Jexri's bioluminescence dimmed. But this situation is different. The stolen technology is human in origin. Surely they would want to. To what? Vathak interrupted. To know that someone has stolen something they deliberately kept locked away. The humans don't hide their most dangerous technologies out of fear, young one. They do it to protect us from ourselves. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. The holographic display returned to the current crisis, where 3 more systems had gone dark during their brief discussion. The thieves, the Murex ambassador's voice quavered. Do they have any idea what they've done? No, Vathak replied, her scales now a deep shade of concern. And that's what terrifies me. The humans will find out. They always do, and when they realize someone has taken something they deemed too dangerous for the galaxy. She left the thought unfinished. A low-priority communication alert chimed through the chamber. The council members exchanged worried glances as Vathak authorized its display. The message was short, text only, and from Earth's diplomatic office. We have noticed the recent communication disruptions. Please be advised that human representatives will be attending the next council session. Prepare accordingly. Jexri's patterns flashed in confusion. That doesn't sound so threatening. The mechanoid representative's optical sensors dimmed to their lowest setting. The humans haven't attended a council session in over 500 years. The last time they did, it was to warn us about the Raxos Combine. 1 week later, the Raxos ceased to exist. Vathak closed the message and addressed the chamber. Alert your governments. Strengthen your information security. And most importantly, Pray that whoever stole that technology returns it before the humans decide to take it back themselves. As the council members hurried to their communication stations, Vathak remained at the central podium, watching more systems vanish into darkness. The humans were coming, and the galaxy was about to remember why everyone had left them alone for so long. Dr. Madison Reynolds knew something was wrong before the alarm started. The Quantum Vault status screen showed green across all security protocols, but the air felt wrong. 20 years of working with quantum technology had given her an almost supernatural sense for quantum disturbances, and right now every nerve in her body was screaming. She pressed her palm against the biometric scanner, speaking the daily authentication phrase. Consciousness is not a resource to be mined. The vault's outer doors parted with their usual whisper-quiet precision. The inner chamber of Earth's maximum security research station Omega looked exactly as it had yesterday. The quantum consciousness transfer device sat in its containment field, a deceptively simple crystal lattice structure suspended in a web of purple energy. Except this morning, the lattice's quantum signature was ever so slightly out of phase. Computer, Madison's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. Run full spectrum analysis on the QCT device. The response came almost immediately. Error. Quantum signature mismatch. Detected object is a Class 7 holographic replication. The alarms began to wail. Madison was already moving, her voice rising above the klaxons. Full station lockdown. Alert Earth Security Council and begin emergency protocol Wintermind. The station's AI responded by sealing every door and activating the quantum dampening fields. Through the vault's crystalline walls, Madison watched as security teams in midnight blue armor rushed past, their boots silent against the station's polished floors. Station Commander Hayes' hologram materialized next to her. "Doctor, please tell me, this is a false alarm." Madison shook her head, already pulling up the security logs. Someone replaced the real device with a holographic copy. Sophisticated work. It even mimics the quantum signature at a surface level. She paused, her eyes widening at the data streaming across her display. Dear God. Commander, they didn't just steal it. They copied it first. The commander's hologram flickered. That's impossible. The anti-replication protocols were bypassed. Madison's fingers flew across the haptic interface. Look at these energy signatures. They used a quantum tunneling device to create a perfect copy of the original, then replaced our device with this hologram. She zoomed in on a particular data stream. The worst part, this happened 3 days ago. We're only seeing it now because the hologram's power source is finally degrading. The station's lights dimmed as additional security measures activated. Outside the vault, teams of quantum scientists in protective gear began setting up detection equipment. How bad is this, Doctor? Hayes asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Madison leaned against the console, her mind racing through the implications. The device was never meant to be copied. Each version creates its own quantum field, interfering with the others. If they try to use multiple copies simultaneously, she looked up at Hayes, her face pale. It would be like creating quantum consciousness fractures in reality itself. A new alert flashed across her screen. The security team had found something. Commander, a gruff voice reported, we've identified the intruders from the quantum residue. It's the Metamind Collective. Hayes swore softly. The Metamind Collective. A group of synthetic organic hybrid pirates who'd been raiding the outer colonies for years. They'd been quiet lately, and now Madison knew why. They think they found the key to perfect digital immortality, she said, already moving toward the door. But they don't understand. The device's limitations aren't bugs. They're features. We built them in after we discovered what unlimited consciousness transfer could do to reality. Dr. Reynolds, Hayes called after her, Where are you going? Madison paused at the threshold. To the quantum lab. The device has a hidden failsafe, a quantum entanglement link to its original design files. If the collective tries to use their copies, I can track them. She managed a grim smile. And maybe, if we're lucky, stop them before they tear apart the fabric of consciousness itself. As she strode through the station's corridors, emergency lights casting everything in a deep red glow, Madison could already feel it. A subtle wrongness in the quantum field, like reality itself, was beginning to fray at the edges. The Metamind Collective had no idea what they'd just started, but soon, very soon, they would learn why humanity kept its most dangerous technologies locked away, not to protect the secrets within, but to protect the universe from them. The mining colony of New Horizon was the first to fall. The distress call came through on all frequencies, breaking through even the quantum static that had been building for days. Dr. Madison Reynolds stood in Earth's primary defense command center, watching the holographic projection of a terrified colony administrator. They're walking around like nothing happened. The administrator's voice cracked, his eyes wild. But they died 3 days ago in the deep mine collapse. And they're not right. Multiple voices coming from the same person. Memories that don't match. Please, you have tow. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Madison turned to the assembled emergency response team. That's the first confirmed effect of the stolen device. The Metamind Collective is trying to transfer consciousness between bodies, but they don't understand the quantum entanglement limitations. General Sarah Morrison, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights, stepped forward. Explain it to me like I'm not a quantum physicist, Doctor. Madison pulled up a holographic model of human neural patterns. Imagine consciousness as a symphony. Each mind is its own unique orchestra, playing its own unique song. What the collective is trying to do is copy that symphony to multiple concert halls at once. But instead of perfect copies, they're creating discordant echoes that bleed into each other. The neural pattern display showed multiple consciousness waves colliding, creating chaotic interference patterns. And these walking dead on New Horizon? Morrison asked. Failed transfer attempts. Madison zoomed in on the colony's bio readings. The collective is using the bodies of the dead miners as hosts, trying to transfer the consciousness of their own members into them. But the quantum field can't handle multiple transfers. It's creating hybrid consciousness states, multiple fragments of different minds trapped in single bodies. A new alert flashed across the main screen. 3 more colony worlds had gone dark. It's spreading, a junior officer reported, his voice tight. The hybrid entities are somehow transmitting their condition through the quantum communication networks. Madison's blood ran cold. She theorized about this possibility years ago. A quantum consciousness virus spreading through the very networks that connected the galaxy. It was why the original device had been locked away. Show me the infection pattern, she commanded. The galactic map lit up with red markers, each representing an affected system. The pattern wasn't random. It was following the major communication routes, jumping from one quantum relay station to the next. They've become a quantum virus, Madison whispered. Each fractured consciousness is trying to stabilize itself by absorbing other minds. The more they spread, the more unstable the entire network becomes. Security footage from New Horizon began streaming in. The scenes were nightmarish. Colonists walked the streets with jerky, unnatural movements, their faces contorting as multiple personalities fought for control. Some spoke in several voices at once, carrying on arguments with themselves in different languages. How do we stop this? Morrison demanded. Madison studied the data streams, her mind racing. The original device had quantum consciousness dampeners built in, fail-safes to prevent exactly this kind of cascade effect. But the collective's copies don't have these protections. Each copy they made is like a new patient zero for this consciousness plague. A scientist from the Quantum Computing Division spoke up. Dr. Reynolds, we're detecting massive quantum field fluctuations around the infected zones. Reality itself is starting to warp. The holographic displays showed it clearly. Spaces where multiple fractured consciousnesses had merged were beginning to exhibit strange properties. Time moved differently there. Light bent in impossible ways. The very fabric of space-time was being distorted by the weight of too many minds occupying the same quantum states. Madison straightened, her decision made. General Morrison, we need to wake up the sleepers. This is exactly the kind of reality-breaking crisis they were preserved for. Morrison's face grew grave. The quantum war veterans. Are you sure? Look at those readings. Madison gestured to the chaos spreading across the galaxy map. We're not just fighting a war for territory or resources now. We're fighting a war for the very nature of consciousness itself. And we're going to need soldiers who remember how to fight an enemy that doesn't play by the rules of reality. As if to emphasize her point, another dozen systems winked out on the display, swallowed by the growing darkness of fractured minds and broken reality. Earth's underground citadel had not seen full assembly in 3 centuries. 200 of humanity's highest-ranking officials sat in concentric circles around the central holographic chamber. The air was heavy with the weight of what they'd just witnessed, footage of the New Horizon colony's descent into consciousness-fractured chaos. Dr. Madison Reynolds stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by 3-dimensional models of infected star systems. Behind her, a delegation of alien ambassadors shifted uncomfortably, their various species showing signs of distress in different ways. The quantum consciousness transfer device was never meant to create perfect copies, Madison explained, her voice echoing through the ancient chamber. We discovered that limitation 300 years ago, during the first consciousness migration experiments. She gestured, and a holographic display shifted to show mural pattern analysis. Each time a consciousness is copied, it creates a quantum echo. These echoes degrade with each subsequent copy, like a photo of a photo of a photo. The Metamind Collective doesn't understand this. They think they've found the path to digital immortality, but what they've actually created is a consciousness cancer. The Mrex ambassador's tentacles writhed in agitation. Why would you even create such technology if you knew the dangers? Madison's eyes met the ambassador's. Because we needed to understand why it couldn't work. The device wasn't built to transfer consciousness. It was built to prove why consciousness can't be transferred without consequences. It's a warning system, not a tool. The display changed again, showing the spreading infection. Systems previously marked in red now turned black, indicating total communication failure. Each infected individual becomes a carrier, Madison continued. Their fractured consciousness reaches out through quantum networks, trying to stabilize itself by absorbing other minds. The more minds it absorbs, the more unstable it becomes, creating a cascade effect. General Morrison stepped forward. Dr. Reynolds has authorized the awakening of the quantum war veterans. The sleepers are being prepared as we speak. A murmur ran through the assembled officials. The sleepers were living legends, soldiers who had fought in humanity's most reality-bending conflicts, preserved in quantum stasis until they were needed again. There's more, Madison said, her voice growing quieter. The chamber fell silent. The device's true purpose was to create a quantum firewall, a way to protect consciousness itself from external manipulation. Every failed transfer attempt we documented, every limitation we built in, was actually a defense mechanism. She brought up a new display, showing the device's inner workings. We knew someone would eventually try this. The quantum wars taught us that the nature of consciousness is too tempting a target. So we created a technology that looked like it could transfer consciousness, knowing it would attract anyone seeking that power. The scary ambassador's bioluminescence flared. You used your own technology as bait. As a trap, Madison corrected. One that would teach anyone who stole it why some lines shouldn't be crossed. But the collective made copies before the device could teach them that lesson. Now the safeguards are gone, and the raw technology is consuming everything it touches. The chamber's ancient screens lit up with new alerts. The infection had reached the core worlds. Reports flooded in of entire planetary networks going dark, of people walking the streets with multiple minds, fighting for control of their bodies. How do we stop it? The Earth president asked, her voice cutting through the growing panic. Madison straightened. We already have the solution. It's why we've kept the original research locked away for 3 centuries. She activated her neural link, and new data streams appeared in the holographic display. The device doesn't just prove why consciousness transfer is impossible. It contains the blueprint for consciousness protection. Every failed experiment, every quantum echo we documented, helped us build a defense against exactly this type of attack. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of humans and aliens alike. We're not going to just stop the Metament Collective. We're going to show the galaxy why humanity doesn't share its most dangerous technologies. Not because we're afraid of them being stolen, but because we're the only ones who remember how to fix the problems they create. The chamber erupted in activity as emergency protocols were initiated. As Madison watched the military leadership begin deployment plans, she could feel the quantum static in the air growing stronger. They were running out of time. The consciousness plague was growing, and reality itself was beginning to buckle under the weight of too many fractured minds. The sound of humanity's deep space defense grid activating began as a low hum. Dr. Madison Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the Lunar Command Center, watching as ancient weapon systems emerged from dimensional storage. The hum built into a resonance that made her teeth ache. The sound of reality parting as humanity's hidden fleet phased back into normal space. Beautiful, isn't it? Admiral James Walker stepped up beside her, his quantum war veteran insignia glowing softly on his collar. Haven't seen the old girl since the consciousness riots of 2891. The ships materializing above Earth's orbit were unlike anything the modern galaxy had seen. Their hulls bore the scars of forgotten battles, quantum-scored marks that shifted and changed as you watched them. These weren't just warships. They were reality enforcement vessels, built to fight in spaces where the laws of physics had become suggestions. The sleepers are almost all awake, Madison said, checking her neural feed. How are they adjusting? Walker's face softened. 3 centuries of quantum stasis, and the first thing they ask is, what needs fixing? That's why we kept them, you know. Not just their experience, their dedication. The main fleet flagship, Humanity's Promise, finally emerged from its dimensional pocket, nearly 20 kilometers long. Its hull was made of materials that shouldn't exist, developed during wars that most of the galaxy had chosen to forget. Madison's neural link chirped with an update. The consciousness plague has reached the Orion Arm. We're getting reports of entire populations merging into collective consciousness networks. Just like the Silicon Wars, Walker muttered. Remember when the machine intelligences tried to force upload organic minds? This is worse. At least they had a pattern they were following. This is just chaos. Below them, in the lunar base's massive hangars, teams of quantum war veterans were suiting up. Their combat armor was unlike modern military gear. These suits were built to operate in spaces where reality had been compromised. Each one contained its own pocket of stable spacetime. Admiral, a young lieutenant called out, the quantum consciousness dampeners are online. All ships report ready for crystal space translation. Walker nodded. Begin fleet-wide neural shielding. I don't want a single mind exposed when we hit the infection zones. Madison watched as the massive fleet began to move into formation. Each ship's quantum drive created a bubble of distorted space around it, protecting it from the consciousness plague's effects. The sight reminded her of photographs she'd seen of ancient naval convoys, ships moving together through hostile waters. "Dr. Reynolds," Walker said, his voice taking on a formal tone. "Your presence is requested aboard the Humanity's Promise. We need your knowledge of the original device to counter its corrupted copies." Madison turned away from the viewport. "How bad is it really, James?" Off the record. The Admiral's weathered face showed his age for a moment. "The quantum field is destabilizing faster than during the worst days of the wars. These fractured consciousnesses, they're not just merging. They're tearing holes in reality trying to find stability. If we don't stop this soon, we might not have a galaxy left to save." Emergency alerts flashed across the neural network. 3 more core worlds had gone dark, their entire populations absorbed into the growing consciousness collective. The quantum static in the air was getting stronger, reality itself protesting against the violations of its most basic laws. "Time to go," Madison said, checking the seals on her neural protection suit. "The galaxy's about to learn why we keep our most dangerous weapons hidden." As they headed for the transport shuttle, the rest of the fleet finished emerging from storage. Hundreds of ships, each one a testament to humanity's preparation for the worst. The sight would have been magnificent if it wasn't so terrifying. A reminder that humans had built this arsenal not out of aggression, but out of the understanding that someone would eventually force them to use it. The last thing Madison saw before boarding was a new alert. The Metamind Collective had been located. They were trying to access the Galactic Core's primary quantum network, a network that connected the minds of trillions. The time for preparation was over. The real war was about to begin. The consciousness plague had turned the Novaris colony into a nightmare made real. Dr. Madison Reynolds watched from the bridge of the Humanity's Promise as the strike teams deployed. Each squad of quantum war veterans moved with the practiced precision of soldiers who had fought reality-warping battles before. Their neural-shielded armor gleamed under the light of 3 suns, all of which were beginning to flicker as the colony's merged consciousness began to affect local spacetime. Multiple hybrid entities detected, Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. They're different from the others, more organized. Madison studied the readings. The lieutenant was right. These weren't like the chaotic mergers they'd seen before. These hybrid consciousnesses were working together, their fractured minds somehow achieving a terrible kind of harmony. The Metamind Collective was here, she realized. These are their early experiments. They've learned to control the merging process. Admiral Walker's hologram materialized on the bridge. "Doctor, we're getting similar reports from all strike teams. The collective isn't just running. They're leaving behind converted populations as weapons." Through the neural feed, Madison watched as the veterans encountered the first wave of hybrid entities. The sight was unsettling. Colonists moving in perfect synchronization, their eyes glowing with quantum energy as multiple consciousnesses worked through their bodies like puppeteers with shared strings. "Deploy the dampeners," she ordered. "Full spectrum." The ship's quantum consciousness dampeners activated, technology that had been developed centuries ago for exactly this scenario. Waves of invisible energy rolled across the colony, creating zones where consciousness could not transfer or merge. The effect was immediate. The hybrid entities stumbled, their shared control breaking apart. Some collapsed, their bodies finally giving in to the strain of housing multiple minds. Others began to scream in multiple voices, the merged consciousnesses fighting for control now that they could no longer work together. "Medical teams moving in," Chen reported. "Consciousness stabilization units ready." Madison watched as the veterans and medical teams worked in concert, each group knowing their role in this dark dance. They'd trained for this, prepared for this, even if they'd hoped they'd never need to use that training. "New contact," the sensor officer called out. "Quantum surge at the edge of the system." Something big just dropped out of crystal space. The main display showed a massive vessel, unlike anything in known space. Its hull was a shifting mass of organic and synthetic materials, like a ship grown rather than built. The quantum readings from it were off the charts. "That's their command ship," Madison said, her voice tight. "The Metamind Collective's main body." Before anyone could respond, the ship broadcast on all frequencies. The voice that came through was a chorus of thousands, speaking in perfect unison. "Humans," the collective said, "you hide your greatest achievements away, hoarding the power to reshape reality itself. We have liberated your technology. We have improved it. We will free all consciousness from the prison of individuality." Madison's hand tightened on the command rail. "You don't understand what you've done." The device's limitations weren't flaws. They were warnings. Every failed transfer, every quantum echo, was showing us why this technology can't be used safely. The collective's response was immediate, their voice taking on a tone of religious fervor. "We have transcended your limitations. We are many, made one. We err." Admiral Walker cut the transmission with a gesture. "Dr. Reynolds, I've seen that look before. What are you thinking?" Madison was already moving to the quantum interface. "They think they've mastered the technology because they found a way to make the merger stable. But that stability is temporary. It's like trying to hold back a tsunami with a dam. The more minds they merge, the more pressure builds up in the quantum field." She brought up the original research data, the warning signs that documented centuries ago. "And when that dam breaks, it won't just kill the merged consciousnesses. It'll create a cascade effect that could tear reality apart across half the galaxy." The bridge crew fell silent as the implications sank in. Through the viewport, they could see more colonial ships rising from the planet's surface, each one filled with hybrid entities under the collective's control. The hunt had become a race against time, not just to stop the collective, but to save the galaxy from their terrifying success. The Galactic Core's primary communication hub was never meant to be a battlefield. Dr. Madison Reynolds stood in the command center of humanity's promise, watching as the Metamind Collective's massive vessel approached the hub. A sprawling network of quantum processors that connected the minds of trillions across the galaxy. "They're going to try to upload their entire network," she said, understanding hitting her like a physical blow. "They're not just looking for more minds to absorb. They want to use the hub as an amplifier." Admiral Walker's face was grim. How many consciousnesses would that affect? "All of them." Madison's hands flew across the quantum interface. "The hub connects every quantum-capable mind in the galaxy. If they succeed, they'll create a consciousness singularity. Reality itself would collapse under the weight of that many merged minds." The collected ship had already begun its attack, organic-synthetic tendrils extending toward the hub's main processors. Where they connected, space itself seemed to writhe. The laws of physics protesting against the violation of their most fundamental rules. "All strike teams, deploy now," Walker ordered, quantum shielding at maximum. Veterans, in reality enforcing armor launched from the human fleet, their suits creating bubbles of stable spacetime around them. But the collective had been prepared for this. Hybrid entities poured from their ship, moving with the terrible grace of thousands of minds working in perfect synchronization. "Dr. Reynolds," the collective's voice echoed through all communication channels, "why do you resist the inevitable? We have perfected what you were too afraid to finish. We have transcended the limitations of individual consciousness." Madison activated the ship's main quantum dampeners, but the collective's merged consciousness was too strong, too stable. They'd found a way to bypass the normal limitations of the technology. "You don't understand," she transmitted back. The device was never meant to copy consciousness. It was designed to prove why consciousness can't be copied. Every limitation, every failure point, was a lesson about the nature of mind itself. Through the neural feed, she watched as the veterans engaged the hybrid entities in combat. It was unlike any battle in known history. Reality itself bent and warped around the combatants as quantum-enhanced weapons clashed with consciousness-warped bodies. "We have surpassed your lessons," the collective responded. "Watch as we ascend." The tendrils reached the hub's core processors. Alarms screamed across every system as the collective began their upload. The quantum field buckled, space-time beginning to fold in on itself. But Madison was smiling. "Admiral," she said, "execute Protocol Infinity Mirror." Walker's eyes widened. "You're sure?" "The original device wasn't just a trap," Madison explained, even as she began the activation sequence. "It was a vaccine. We knew someone would eventually try this, so we built the solution into the very thing they would try to steal." She brought up the original research files. The real ones, not the decoys the collective had stolen. Every failed experiment, every quantum echo, every limitation we documented. They were all parts of a larger pattern. A pattern that, when completed, creates a quantum consciousness firewall. The hub's processors began to glow with a light that shouldn't exist. The collective's upload faltered as they encountered something they hadn't expected. A protection system built into the very nature of consciousness itself. "What have you done?" The collective's voice held fear for the first time. "We spent 3 centuries preparing the galaxy's communications networks," Madison explained, watching as the pattern spread. "Everything you stole, everything you thought you were exploiting, it was all part of the defense system. You didn't just steal our technology. You activated our greatest shield." The quantum field stabilized as the pattern locked into place. The collective's merged consciousness began to fragment, not into chaos, but into carefully controlled individual states. "The device was never about transferring consciousness," Madison said softly. "It was about understanding how to protect it. And you just helped us activate that protection across the entire galaxy." Through the viewport, she watched as reality itself seemed to take a deep breath and begin to heal. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. 3 weeks after the confrontation at the core, representatives from every known species gathered to witness something unprecedented, a full explanation from humanity about one of their hidden technologies. Dr. Madison Reynolds stood at the center of the chamber, the quantum consciousness transfer device. The original one, floating in its containment field beside her. Admiral Walker and a honor guard of quantum war veterans stood at attention behind her, their battle-scared armor a reminder of what had almost been lost. The device was never just a single tool. Madison began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. It was part of a 3-century project to protect consciousness itself. We called it the Infinity Mirror Protocol. The holographic display showed the pattern that had saved the galaxy, a complex quantum matrix that had been hidden in plain sight, distributed across countless failed experiments and seemingly useless research data. Every time someone tried to steal our consciousness transfer technology, they actually helped us deploy another piece of the protection system, she explained. The Metamind Collective was simply the first group to steal enough of it to activate the entire network. In the observation gallery, former members of the collective watched with mixed expressions. They had been successfully separated back into individual consciousnesses, their minds stabilized by the very technology they had tried to exploit. "We knew, centuries ago, that the greatest threat to consciousness wasn't death or even digital decay," Madison continued. "It was the temptation to merge, to force unity where diversity should exist. The device proved that every consciousness is unique, a symphony that can't be copied without losing something essential." Grand Counselor Vathak stepped forward, her scales shifting in complex patterns. "Why not simply tell us this? Why the secrecy?" Admiral Walker answered, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had fought in the quantum wars. Because the protection had to be built by those who would try to break it. Every attempt to steal or copy the technology added new layers to the defense. The collective's actions completed the final pattern, creating a galaxy-wide shield against consciousness manipulation. The display showed the current state of the galaxy's quantum network. Where there had been chaos, now there was harmony. Not the forced unity of the collective, but the natural resonance of billions of individual minds connected yet distinct. As of today, Madison announced, the research behind the device will be made public, not because it can be used to transfer consciousness, but because it proves why such transfer is neither possible nor desirable. She gestured, and the device's containment field dissolved. The crystal lattice structure began to disassemble itself, each piece becoming transparent as its true purpose was revealed. Each fragment contains part of the mathematical proof, she explained. Together, they demonstrate why consciousness must remain individual to remain stable. It's not a weapon or a tool. It's a lesson, written in the language of reality itself. The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just protected the galaxy from a single threat. They had vaccinated reality itself against the temptation of forced consciousness manipulation. We're establishing the Technological Preservation Initiative, Admiral Walker added, a joint program to study and protect other technologies that could threaten the natural order of consciousness. We invite all species to participate, not as students or teachers, but as equal partners in protecting what makes us unique. As the council session ended, Madison found herself looking out at the stars through the chamber's ancient windows. The quantum static that had plagued the galaxy was gone, replaced by the subtle resonance of protected minds. A junior diplomat approached her, their bioluminescence showing curiosity. Dr. Reynolds, is this why no one has provoked humanity in so long? Because you're always thinking centuries ahead. Madison smiled. No, they don't provoke us because they know we'll respond, not with violence or dominance, but with solutions to problems they don't even know they have yet. That's what makes us dangerous. We don't just prepare for the future. We shape it, one hidden safeguard at a time. Above the council world, the human fleet began to return to their dimensional storage. Their mission complete, they would sleep again, these warriors, and their reality-enforcing ships. Until the next time, the galaxy needed reminding why humanity's most powerful technologies were the ones they chose not to use. The future was secure, not because of weapons or walls, but because of understanding. And in the end, that had always been humanity's greatest strength.